Welcome to the Hope for Today podcast. Today is day 12. We're entering a really pivotal moment in the life of Jacob. He's just navigated years of some pretty profound turmoil and, well, complicated family strife.
To say the least.
But today, the narrative shifts completely. We're going to look at a moment of deep spiritual clarity, a divine redirection where God calls Jacob back to the very foundation of his faith.
Right.
God begins to weave his purpose through both covenant blessing and human brokenness.
And it's such an essential transition. I mean, when we find ourselves bogged down by the messes we've made or, the distractions that have just piled up.
And Jacob's household had plenty of both.
Oh, absolutely. God often intervenes. He calls us back to the simple foundational truths of who we are in him. What we are about to see is a powerful, uncompromising command for spiritual cleansing that really sets the stage for everything that comes next.
Okay, let's unpack this instruction. God gives Jacob a crystal clear directive. Go up to Bethel and settle there and build an altar there to God.
So why Bethel?
That's the key question.
This isn't just about finding a new campsite, right? It's about returning to the exact spot where God first appeared to him decades earlier, back when he was fleeing Esau.
That specificity is everything. Bethel means house of God. It's a spiritual anchor point for him. God wasn't asking Jacob to build something new from scratch. He was asking him to fulfill a commitment he'd made a long, long time ago.
So it's a reminder that true renewal often involves revisiting and, renewing those foundational moments of faith.
Exactly.
And the response Jacob makes, it just shows he totally understood the weight of this move, both physically and spiritually. He immediately commands his entire household.
Get rid of the foreign gods you have with you and purify yourselves and change your clothes.
Yeah, and that wasn't a suggestion. It was an absolute requirement for entering back into God's presence. The required action is fascinating because it addresses the depth of the defilement. The foreign gods weren't just, little statues.
Right.
The text also singles out the earrings they wore. In that culture, jewelry, especially earrings, often served as amulets or symbols tied to pagan gods, maybe for protection.
So to renounce those was a public, physical declaration of undivided loyalty.
A very visible one.
That brings up a great question for us today, then. What does it look like to bury our foreign gods? Because Jacob didn't just tuck them away in a box.
No, he gathered every idol, every charm, those rings, and he buried them under the oak at Shechem. Burying it signifies a final, definitive break.
You're not just moving them.
You're putting to death those past attachments, the divided loyalties that held power over you. It shows the spiritual severity of it all. It has to be active, intentional, and permanent.
And what happens right after this act of obedience is stunning. Security. The text says as they traveled, the terror of God fell on the towns all around them so that no one pursued them. Their obedience immediately brought divine protection.
It did. And when Jacob got to Bethel and built that altar, they weren't just safe from human enemies, they were safely established under the covenant. Obedience clears the path.
So after this cleansing, God appears to Jacob again. This is so significant because it just highlights God's unwavering faithfulness.
It really does. Even after Jacob's household had, lapsed into idolatry and all sorts of distractions, God returns to confirm two essential things for him: his identity and his purpose.
Well, let's start with identity. God affirms the name change. Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel.
And that name, he struggles with God, is now solidified. It's like God is telling him, despite your past, this is who you are now, a prince who has prevailed.
And then the promises follow, and they're all rooted in this declaration, I am God Almighty.
Right, El Shaddai. The Hebrew name here speaks to God's all-sufficiency, his power to actually execute his promises. He doesn't just promise, he promises from a position of limitless power.
And what are those promises? First, the foundational command. Be fruitful and increase in number. This leads to the establishment of a nation and a community of nations.
And critically, kings will be among your descendants.
Yes. And then secondly, he reaffirms the land promised to Abraham and Isaac. It's like God is saying, the plan hasn't changed. All the chaos in your family doesn't cancel out the covenant.
He meets Jacob right where he is to confirm that the future of his people is secure in him. It's beautiful.
And Jacob's response is just as beautiful.
Yeah.
He sets up a stone pillar, pours out a drink offering and oil, and he names the place Bethel all over again.
It wasn't just a quiet prayer. It was visible. It was public. A concrete act to solidify the reality of that covenant.
It just shows us that God's promises are steadfast. Even when we lapse, he always provides a way back.
Okay, but here's the brutal reality check that immediately follows the spiritual high point.
Right.
The story doesn't let Jacob just linger in that joy. Profound difficulty strikes almost immediately. They travel on, and Rachel, his beloved wife, dies while giving birth.
It's just heartbreaking. In her dying moments, she names her son Benoni, which means son of my trouble. It's a name just steeped in pain and death.
But Jacob steps in and he renames the child Benjamin, son of my right hand, which implies strength, honor, hope for the future.
That contrast, it perfectly captures life after renewal, doesn't it? Hope and tragedy existing side by side.
It does. And with Benjamin's birth, the foundational lineage is complete. Jacob now has the 12 sons, the future tribes of Israel.
But even as that's solidified, the brokenness within the family is just starkly revealed. The text immediately pivots to a moral failure.
Reuben, the firstborn, goes and sleeps with his father's concubine, Bilhah.
And this wasn't just a sin of passion. This was a brazen act, a challenge to his father's authority, an attempt to claim status and destabilize the hierarchy.
A major moral failure. It shows that spiritual renewal is a journey, not a, one-and-done destination. Human sin is still right there in the heart of God's chosen people.
Yet the story moves on. The chapter ends with the peaceful death of Jacob's father, Isaac. He lived 180 years and was buried by both his sons, Esau and Jacob.
Yeah, despite all the years of conflict, they come together in this moment of shared mourning. It's a poignant final image of reconciliation as the torch passes to the next generation.
A generation that is already defined by some very deep-seated rivalry. And now the spotlight falls heavily on Joseph, the 17-year-old. He quickly becomes the fault line for all that family tension. The root cause is clear. Jacob loved Joseph excessively.
He was the son of his old age and, critically, the son of his beloved Rachel. And that favoritism was not subtle at all.
No. Jacob made a highly visible physical symbol of it, the ornate robe.
In a family built on patriarchal authority and the traditions of the firstborn, giving a garment like that to a younger son was basically a public insult to the others.
And the response was immediate.
Yeah.
And toxic. When the brothers saw their father's preference, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him.
The hatred was already simmering, but then Joseph starts sharing his dreams.
And these weren't just random dreams. They were explicitly prophetic. In the first one, the sheaves of grain representing his brothers all bowed down to Joseph's sheaf.
A direct assault on the traditional power structure. The brothers got it immediately. Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?
That fear just escalated their hatred.
Yeah.
Then comes the second dream.
Even more provocative.
The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down to him. This time, even his father Israel rebukes him for it.
But while Israel verbally rebuked him, the text notes he kept the matter in mind. Unlike the brothers who reacted with just pure, destructive jealousy, the father maybe sensed something more. He recognized the potential prophetic weight of it.
And here's such a powerful lesson for us. When God reveals a great purpose for your life, the spiritual dreams he's placed in your heart, it can immediately create conflict.
Yeah, isolation, jealousy.
And often, it's opposition from the closest places, from your own family, simply because God has revealed a destiny that upsets the established order.
And that internal opposition is about to boil over into action. Israel sends Joseph to check on his brothers, a seemingly innocent errand.
But it puts the dreamer directly in the path of all their festering hatred.
The minute they see him coming in the distance, that hatred solidifies into a plot for murder. They decide to kill him, throw him in a cistern, and lie about it.
And their motive was all about destroying his destiny. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams.
But then we see a crucial analysis of the brothers' motivations. There's the outright violence, but Reuben, the firstborn, the one who had his own moral failure, he intervenes. He suggests just throwing Joseph into the cistern, but not laying a hand on him. His plan was to secretly rescue him later. It shows a fragile conscience, but one that was ultimately too weak.
Then Judah steps in with a different idea. They see a caravan of Ishmaelites, and Judah argues against murder. He says, "What will we gain if we kill our brother? Come, let's sell him."
So his motive wasn't repentance, it was cold, self-interested pragmatism. Make a profit while getting rid of the problem.
And they agree. Joseph is pulled out of the cistern and sold for 20 shekels of silver, the price of a slave.
And the malice achieves their short-term goal. The threat is gone.
The cover-up that follows is just. It's meticulously deceptive and profoundly cruel. They take Joseph's ornate robe, slaughter a goat, and dip the robe in the blood.
And then they present it to their father. Jacob's grief is immediate and overwhelming. He's utterly convinced a ferocious animal has devoured his son. He refuses to be comforted.
I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave. It's just absolute grief built on an absolute lie, a spiritual betrayal of the highest order.
And this is the profound mystery of God's providence in the whole story. A heinous, malicious, self-serving act
The selling of Joseph into slavery.
becomes the precise mechanism through which God's ultimate purpose, the very dreams the brothers hated, is moved forward.
Even deep family pain and human sin are woven into this larger redemptive pattern that they could never have anticipated. Joseph is sold to Potiphar, an official of Pharaoh.
Landing him exactly where God needed him to be for the future preservation of the entire covenant family.
So today on day 12, we've seen these extreme highs and lows. We saw a clear command for purification and recommitment at Bethel, proving God always provides a path back. But right after that spiritual high, we saw the painful unfolding of God's plan through loss, rivalry, and just deep betrayal.
The journey of faith is marked by both foundational covenant promises and moments of great loss and human suffering. Our trust in God's heart means recognizing that he can take something as desolate as a cistern, a pit of despair.
And turn it into the crucial path toward fulfillment.
Exactly. He can use even the darkest human intentions and weave them together for his ultimate glorious purpose.
Yeah, we should take heart knowing that God is actively working his plan through all the human chaos. The family line was secured by two things: radical purification and commitment to God at Bethel, followed by the radical suffering started by sin. Both were necessary. We can trust that even in our darkest cistern moments, God is already preparing the next stage of our journey.
And that was it for day 12. Meet you on day 13 tomorrow.